G'day, Bomber fans. Well, I was at the hangar during the week watching the boys train in the heat. It is getting hot, by the way. It is well and truly summer. Summer has begun. But no, I'm going to talk to you guys about training. I'll tell you what I saw, what I liked, maybe what I didn't like. Keep in mind, this is going to be a one session specific video. I was only out there for the Friday session. So this will be really revolving around what I saw on Friday. But I will hopefully have a guest on in the coming days or maybe weeks to talk about the preseason as a whole. They are an expert track watcher. Hopefully that gets lined up pretty soon. For now, though, you'll have to do with me just talking about the one session. So let's get into it. Also, guys, I should have mentioned all the images that I'm using today from training are taken by the magnificent, the fabulous Charlie Dons. I'll leave a little link in the description for you below in the bio. Go give him a follow. He is just a gem of a photographer and a gem of a human. All right, let's talk about the structure of training and what it looks like out there, because I think this will be good information for you guys who, you know, might want to get out to a training session and watch the boys, which I do recommend, by the way. Get out to the hangar if you can. But yeah, I made a big effort to get out to one of the high intensity days. The way that it's split up, there are 3 official sessions a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Monday and the Friday are bloody tough work. They are really intense, and I'll talk about that in a second. The Wednesday is kind of your rest day. It's more skill based. It's more, you know, getting a hands on the football and kicking. There's not really much running at all, if any, I've been told. It's really, this is an interesting philosophy for Matt Innes, who's adopted this, and it's been, you know, tinkered with in the past with Sean Murphy in a similar way. But Matt Innes is really prioritizing the sessions that count. So Monday and Friday, the boys are going at, you know, I'm going to say like 80 to 90 to 100%, or not 100, but 80 to 90%. They're going really hard at it on Monday and Friday. On Wednesday, I'd say that I've been told they go at like, you know, a walking pace, like a 10%. And really, you might say, wouldn't it be better to get the boys going at a consistent level across the week? No, because you want to, you know, AFL, you play one AFL game a week in the home and away season. What Matt Innes is trying to do is replicate AFL games. So these training sessions, he's making them as hard as they can be and as close as they can be to AFL games, so the boys can actually last the season. And this might mean that you get some players breaking down every now and then, you know, who have in the past, and we've seen that. I'll talk about some of the injuries in a second. But it's also just going to mean that the younger guys, you know, hopefully last better in their career because they're so used to playing hard AFL footy minutes because they're doing it in the preseason. So I was actually told, by the way, by someone at the club that the 3 hardest sessions in terms of high-speed running across the last few years have all occurred in the last month. So the boys right now are at their hardest, working at their hardest, if you get what I mean. So the main sessions, they're working as hard as they've been for years. So maybe the Wednesdays, they're you know, relaxing a bit more than they might have in the past, but the main sessions, the Mondays and the Fridays, they are working seriously hard. And there's a few cool things they do with this. I won't go into detail with any of this, by the way, because, you know, that'll be boring, but there aren't any really breaks in between drills, so players will hear a whistle to get to a new drill, and they'll have to run to the next drill that they're conducting before, you know, breaking or talking to coaches. Brad Scott, by the way, he doesn't like the coaches doing much coaching during drills, which is, I guess, you know, again, to replicate game day. Coaches don't just stand on the oval barking instructions. It's on the players. And I think the most brutal thing that the players have to do, and you might already be aware of this, but they split up into these groups and do these really big runs around the oval. It's really tough work. The players look spent, and as soon as they finish the run, they line up for goal immediately and kick straight away. This is, of course, to simulate, you know, kicking after putting your body through the ringer. But it's really tough. Archie Roberts in an interview described it as grueling, and that is the perfect word for it, especially in the heat. It was a 30-degree day on Friday. I was struggling on the sidelines. I had to go in the shade, so it wasn't a surprise to see some of the boys look absolutely spent by the end of a really long session. There was one younger player, I won't name names, but, you know, he did chuck up in front of a little group of us to the side. So yeah, if you haven't been out to a session, just know that they're really putting in work. Like, and from what I've been told by those at the club, the main sessions are the most intense that they've been in years. It is really tough out there. Matt Innes is really making it tough for the boys. Yeah, the philosophy is, and I'm paraphrasing, but he is belting the crap out of them so they become more robust and less fragile in the long term. And yes, of course, for some senior players, the work they've been doing before this season, you know, may not have strengthened their bodies to its potential, and now it's a big shift into really hard work, and, you know, you can expect some setbacks here and there. Ridley is a good example with that minor hamstring already. I'll talk about that in a second. But you don't just come in and fix everything straight away. Like, Matt Innes is not just going to work wonders in his first year. We're undoubtedly going to have some more injuries in 2026. But I think what Innes is doing at the club right now is really good for these younger players who, hopefully, coming into the system, it's perfect to build physical resilience in the playing group going forward. And I think under Sean Murphy, no offense to Sean Murphy, but yes, he might have had some players, really fit as athletes, but we didn't last seasons. Footballers, they weren't lasting football games in some cases as well. I think what Matt Innes is trying to do is just improve these guys for the long seasons that are ahead and make them as tough and robust as they can be. I think because of how hard the training sessions are, I'm probably I don't want to say anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are more injuries to come in this preseason because of how hard the sessions are, how hard they're running. Even Ridley off to the side is doing a lot of gut running. But the goal here is to improve these guys and make them more resilient as footballers physically, because that is really important. And Matt Innes, by the way, just going off him, he's a really commanding figure out there. Like, you just see he's got his aura about him, but he's also just got a lot of time for the fans. So he came and spoke over to us. He had a long chat with Fiona from Bomber Banter. So maybe if I can get her on the channel, she'll let us know about that. I believe she's actually planning a video about that discussion she had with Matt Innes. So, check her channel out. But yeah, Matt Innes is really, he's the one conducting these sessions, it seems. There's not much coaching that goes on. You see a fair bit before and after. During the sessions, Matt Innes is kind of the guy. Speaking of Matt Innes, let's get through some of the injury news real quick, because there is a lot of chatter. I'm not going to, there's a lot of gossip this time of the year with mainstream media. They like to make mountains out of molehills, and let me tell you, a lot of it is baloney. So let's go through what I saw on Friday. Obviously, you've got the 4 ACL boys. Nick Martin's going to take a lot longer to recover, so he was unsighted. Lewis Hayes was in the gym as well. I know that he has been doing some more work than just gym, but I'm guessing his load for the Friday was gym. Same with Nick Bryan. I didn't see him too much as well. The one I really saw was Tom Edwards. Nick Bryan, I know, is doing really well for his schedule as well, so I wouldn't be worried about that. Maybe it was just a lighter session on Friday, but Tom Edwards was putting in a mountain of work just in front of me. His running was, he was running all day really, and he was also doing some light marking and kicking as well, which is good. That it shows that he's trying to integrate a bit quicker into hopefully getting back into training. He was actually doing a little one-on-one marking drill. It was a very light marking drill with Jordan Ridley, who had that hamstring scare. I'm really not worried about Jordan Ridley and that hamstring right now. I mean, I am, but the current injury is super minor. He's moving really well. He is doing lots of running on it off to the side. He's doing some kicking and marking, as I said, with Tom Edwards. So unless there's another setback, he's going to be back by 2026 for the new year training. He looks good out there. I'm not too worried about that. Archie Perkins and Sullivan Roby were both in the gym. Both seemed in good spirits when I walked past them. Hopefully in the new year, those two are able to ramp up their work rate and workloads a bit more. I don't know what the goal is with Archie Perkins, but Sullivan Roby, I think the expectation is, he'll obviously have some scans to confirm if that stress hotspot is still there. Hopefully it's not. But if not, he'll be back in 2026 training. And I think that's what the club said as soon as that information came out. What else is there? There's not really anyone else. Oh, Harry Jones was doing a bit more running, which is good. And of course, you've got guys like, there were stories about Kyle Langford and his leg. I think Jay Clark might have posted that one. Andy McGrath had that footage of him limping off the track. That was just him having his foot trotted on. He trained fully, Andy McGrath, and so did Kyle Langford. Both of them look fine. I really, there's nothing to worry about there. They both trained fully, and I didn't see any managed workloads from those guys. They were training pretty much the whole time at a really high level. All right, what you guys really want to hear about in this video is who lit up the track. That's really the key word. Who's tearing it up on the track this time of the year. Unfortunately, I didn't get a great look at everyone. I unfortunately was, when you're at a session, you're limited to what's in front of you. You're limited to, who's in front of you, what's going on. There's a lot of having to move around the ground because there are some drills that are just, not that good, unfortunately, in front of you, and you have to go to another drill, and then by the time you get there, the drill's moved around again. So, and there's also a lot of yapping. Unfortunately, I was just not as focused as I should have been out there, but I did get a good look at quite a few players that I wasn't expecting to get a look at. I went in into the day hoping to get a look at my boy Max Contagianis, the draftees, some key players in my head. That didn't happen. And I think this is good because what happened instead was I was watching the session as a whole and I'd see someone catch my eye, and that's really, this is players that caught my eye. That they were literally catching my eye. They were in my line of sight, and I couldn't stop looking at them. And there were a few, and I think the main one really to start with is Mr. Zach Merritt. He looked really good out there. I think he was the main standout for me, and it kind of goes without saying. Like, the guy really does set the standards on the track. He is an unbelievable footballer. We know that, but he was the one who really caught my eye on training at Friday. His ball use was exceptional. He was getting really involved. He had some really good moments, both offensively and defensively as well. So Zach Merritt for me was probably, he gets the 3 Brownlow votes if we're giving Brownlow votes out for training. There are actually quite a few senior players that caught my attention. Darcy Parish in particular was looking really good out there, both physically and mentally, and that's good I think that's good because this guy has had a really horrid run at it. He really hasn't got out on the park as much as he would have hoped, but he's looking good out there. He's looking fit and healthy and playing good football, or training good football. But I think what really impressed me most was just the mental side of things. He had a big smile on his face. He seemed really energetic. He was in the cafe talking to fans. He was taking time out of his day to talk to fans, and he just seemed happy-go-lucky. It seemed like there was a bit of hope from him that this was going to be a big year coming forward. So that is good. The fact that he is energetic and happy. You've also got guys like, I really liked, there was a good battle between Peter Wright and Ben Mackay, because obviously, key forward, key defender, they were playing on each other for a lot of training, but it was good to see. I think both of them were looking trimmer. Both of them were looking healthier. There was a good moment actually with Ben Mackay where I talked earlier about a player who was chucking up during the run, and Ben Mackay was the one player who got out to him and put his arm around him and supported him. And that was good. A little bit of leadership. He's obviously a quiet voice out there, but that's just, a form of leadership, if you will. Who else is there? You've got, actually, this is an interesting one, but there was one instance, and it wasn't just this one instance. He was energetic for the session as a whole, but there was a rundown tackle actually on Ben Mackay, I believe, and everyone off to the side was saying, "Oh, who was that? That was a great bit of pressure. It must be Merritt. It must be Huss, must be Kako." They get up and it was Jade Gresham. He was looking really energetic out there on Friday. I don't know what he's been like in preseason as a whole, but on Friday he was probably one of the more energetic players that I noticed and that caught my eye. He had some eye-catching moments, Jade Gresham. So that's interesting. Another one you guys will be happy to know about is Braden Fiorini. He's actually probably made himself a big part of training already at the club. His running is really exceptional. Like, he's one of the fittest already, and it's good to watch because whenever the boys are doing those grueling runs in groups, you see them all sweating and panting and struggling, and Fiorini runs past you with a massive grin on his face. It's like he enjoys it. He's super fit, which is great. We need that, but the fact that he's enjoying those runs is I love it. He's very clean as well with the footy, and he's also one of the louder voices out there too. I think he's an absolute lock for round 1, Fiorini. I don't think there's much pressure on his spot at all, if I'm being honest. He looks like a really good wingman and a good pickup. Seeing him live in the flesh, seeing how he approaches training, approaches those grueling runs, talks to the younger kids, it's a good pickup. I'm really happy with this one. I think he's already a good part of the club. Archer May is one that's looking really good. He's looking trimmer, healthier. He's not only a very big boy, but he's looking better below his knees. I think that's really interesting because it's, that's probably one of his, not weaknesses, but something he could have improved on, and it looks like he's trying to improve on it. Someone I watched really closely was Kale Jirai, and it's not because I was trying to watch them closely, but he was just getting a lot of the footy. I think that's a big thing with Kale Jirai in his kicking. He's a really good kicker of the footy, but he was being trusted quite a lot in some kicking drills and some ball movement drills to use the footy, and I think that's good because he's got some limitations with his fitness. He's had that since his draft year, but he's getting involved in training and getting to more contests, which I think is exactly what he needs to do. So I wouldn't say he's a round 1 smoky yet. He probably does need to build his tank a bit more, but I think he's got a really good base to work with his technical skills. He's one of the more technically gifted footballers on our list right now, which is good. There was one really good moment actually where he had one of the slickest hand passes you will ever see out on a wing. It really was not something that you'd expect a 2-meter player to be doing, but he did it. Another one is Angus Clark. I think Angus Clark is already cementing himself as almost a leader. I'd say he had the loudest voice out there on Friday, and that's both a criticism of the team as a whole, which I'll talk about in a bit, but also just a glowing endorsement of Angus Clark, who's a 19-year-old out there being one of the loudest voices. That is great. He was really yapping, and he's also the one leading the pace in the running drills. He's always the one out the front, and he's barking instructions as well. So yeah, it's really great to see a player that young really, stepping up and setting standards. Aside from those guys, I can't really think of too much that I saw. I might be forgetting someone. I remember a really good Jaden Newen bit of courage, which is expected. Sardell Hawley is really taking the game on. He is a get and go type player. Often runs himself into trouble, I'll say that, but when it works, it really does work. Elijah Sardis, a lot of you wanted to see his kicking. I was looking out for that, and it does look punchier. It is obviously training, and I didn't see him under intense pressure yet, so I won't, hype him up too much, but his kicking does look punchier than it did before. He's obviously, in the past had those floaty kicks, but it did look a lot more direct, and it looks like a stronger kick of the footy. Obviously, we'll wait to see what he's like with a bit more pressure on him, in AFL simulation, skills wise, but from what I saw, he did look alright out there. But for the most part, I think most of the players are working really hard and looking good. There were some skill issues every now and then, which I'll talk about in a bit, but for the most part, I did like what I saw with the individuals, especially the younger players who are really, some of them are looking ready. Like Dyson Sharp, he looks like he belongs out there. Jacob Farrow looks really composed. There were some really nice handball chains that he was involved in, so it's good to see. A lot of the younger players are looking ready to go, round one. All right, let's go through some key takeaways before I leave you, because there's a few things that I'm really going to be focusing on next time I'm at a session. So the first one is it's a negative. We are a very quiet club. I think we're definitely one of the quietest clubs in the league on field. I've heard that we are one of the quietest clubs, vocally. There's really not a lot of chatter. And the fact that Angus Clark is one of the loudest voices out there is fantastic. And it's a good, thing to look forward to in the future, especially when you've got Archie Roberts and, Dyson Sharp coming through as leaders as well, potentially. But for now, when you've got, your leaders really not having much voice out there on the training track, it is not ideal. The club is actually, going through some leadership type roles or some communication type sessions with some of the players to improve this. But we are quiet out there. So that's something that I'm probably a little bit worried about going forward. The fact that there's just not a lot of voice. I didn't hear too much voice at all. And the voice I heard was mainly a 19-year-old. So that is something I'm a little bit worried about. But on the plus side, the intent was there. Some of the tackles, the rundown tackles, Jade Gresham, Jaden Newen going back with the flight. There was a Mason Redmond rundown tackle. There was a Sardell Hawley rundown tackle. There was some really good defensive efforts, which you don't usually expect from training, on a 30-degree day in December, early in December. We're so far away from the start of the season, but some of the boys, some of those defensive acts were as if they were playing in a game. So there's a negative and a positive for you right there. Now, the skills are hard to judge because it was probably not a good day to watch and focus on skills, because it was not only warm, but it was really windy as well. So the skills were not at their best. There were quite a few missed kicks. There were actually quite a few missed handballs, which I didn't like. That was probably the one thing that I didn't enjoy watching at training. There is a clear direction to go forward. So when there's an option to go back and an option to go forward, the club is going to prioritize the option to go forward and progress the ball forward, instead of moving backwards. That's going to be a clear focus in 2026. So I'd be watching out for that. The fact that the club is going to be trying to move the ball forward as much as they can. But at the moment, a tough day to judge, but the skills weren't at their best. We'll see what they're like. I'll talk to a pre-season, a track watcher who can actually tell us what they've been like across the whole preseason. But on Friday, they weren't amazing. But the main takeaway for me is that it is just really tough out there. Like they are working seriously hard. It was not just hot, but they were seriously working as hard as they could. There was some, players spewing up. There were players absolutely spent by the end of it. It is hard work. It is, and I'm sure that must feel really rewarding for them as well, because they're working as hard as they have, really. Like that is just a fact, I've been told. So it's good. That's really what I was impressed most by, but the fact that they were really lasting the session, working hard. Yes, I said that there were some skill errors, but of course you take into account that they're really, the hard work they're doing before these skill errors, they're being made to kick under fatigue, which is not going to look good this early into the year. I'd be really worried if it's the skill errors and the skill issues are lingering around, January, February, March. But we'll wait for that. If they are, we'll criticize them a lot more. But right now, what they're doing is, being forced to kick under fatigue, kick for goal under fatigue, hand pass under fatigue, which I think is really good, and it'll set the standards for the hardest parts of games. That's really what the club is training for. It's lasting games. It's lasting to the hardest parts. We're so easy to play against when it gets to 30 minutes plus in a quarter. We really fall asleep in red time footy. So the goal is, or the expectation or the hope is for me, the Bombers to be a more consistent team for 4 quarters, and the way we're training right now is a good way to set that up. But yeah, that is my training recap for Friday. I will have someone who's been to a lot more sessions and who's got a bigger brain than me come onto the channel and talk about what they've seen over the preseason as a whole, because I think that is really interesting. One session, realistically, like, someone could be having a bad day, someone could be having a really good day. You can't judge too much off one session, so keep that in mind if you're in the comments down below. But also, if you comment in the comments down below, let me know what you think. Who are you liking the look of in your training vision that you see, or who are you hearing good things about at the track? That's all though. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Make sure you like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and as always, go Bombers.